Now, in 2 weeks, China is going to celebrate the Chinese New Year, and which if you live in China long enough and you know that Chinese New Year signifies the unification not only among the friends, but also among all the relationships. But meanwhile, for some countries, particularly in the Middle East, like for example in Pakistan, this New Year might not be able to be as smooth as we thought. For example, since in the past couple months, the ongoing protest and took place regarding one of the critical regions, which is Gwadar, which is an important region for the Belt and Road Initiative, and also this healthful economic relationship between China and Pakistan really shows there's something quite different regarding the relationship. Needless to say that this protest from the locals really demands, and I quote, the Chinese companies or the Chinese nationals to leave the region in order to maintain the peaceful relationship for the locals. So in this episode, we need to talk about this ongoing protest in the region of Gwadar, and also why the Belt and Road Initiative could be also impacted regarding this ongoing protest. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great honor to invite our distinguished speaker. Again, if you follow our show, you should be familiar with Dr. Shoaib Kahut. Now, Dr. Kahut is a PhD scholar of the Shandong University in China, and his research interests include Belt and Road Initiative and energy economics. He has carried out extensive research on Chinese investment across the globe, and also he belongs to Pakistan, wherein he worked for the government and private sectors as well. He regularly writes for international papers and journals. Now, Dr. Kahut, and welcome back to The Missing Piece.
Thank you very much, Mr. Will, and it's always been a pleasure.
Well, Dr. Kahut, I want to say Happy New Year to you, and I hope it's not too late. Again, as we mentioned before, in 2 weeks that we're going to celebrate the Chinese New Year. But again, as we mentioned something in the intro, when China is getting ready to celebrate the Chinese New Year, but meanwhile, let's look at the country of Pakistan. I want to raise something to you, and I want to get your reaction and help us to understand the details. It says for the past few months, the protesters in Pakistan have blocked the Gwadar East Bay Express, an area crucial to Pakistan-China relations. Gwadar Port City is the nucleus China-Pakistan economic corridor and joined the country's main highway network. I think previously you and I, we discussed this corridor and also this economic relationship between China and Pakistan under Belt and Road Initiative. But now the protest seemed to took another approach to this Belt and Road Initiative. Now, let's start with a question. Help us to understand what is the detail behind the protest and how much do you think that could also impact the China and Pakistan relationship under Belt and Road Initiative?
Yeah, because just to give some background to our viewers and listeners, Gwadar is in the Balochistan province of Pakistan, which is the southernmost province of Pakistan. And it is, in terms of land, it is the biggest province of Pakistan. And in terms of population, it is the least populated area. So, which means that the population density in Gwadar is the least in Pakistan among all the provinces. So, historically, in all the development metrics, whatever you take, be it the education or health facilities or infrastructure, this province lies at the lowest bottom. So it is the least developed province of Pakistan. So this is the reality. So this is the fact, which we need to understand. In the first time in the history of Pakistan, this great grand project of building of the port in Gwadar. Gwadar again, it's a port and the area name in Balochistan. Gwadar is a city, and here the Chinese companies are, they are building the port, Gwadar Port, and which actually is the, you can say, the most important part of this Belt and Road Initiative. So again, the portion of Belt and Road Initiative, which actually relates with Pakistan, is called China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEC. So Gwadar is at the very forefront of CPEC. because if you see the Belt and Road initiative across the globe, so it's all about the ports. Ports are the main part of this BRI. So the Gwadar Port lies uh, at the very forefront. Yeah. So that was the background, right? So now coming to your question, protest. So as I mentioned earlier, that this province lies at the very bottom of the development matrices. So all of those development issues. So unfortunately, uh, just few of them has been solved yet, because thanks to this Gwadar Port development, so many roads have been built there. Some schools are there. A couple of hospitals have been built. Now the Gwadar International Airport is in the process. But some very basic issues which they are facing. For example, because majority of the population, because of their locality, they are the fishermen. They
Mm.
belong to the fisherman community. So with this great port building, and this more and more presence of Chinese friends, you know so they were expecting that their already existing problems will be solved, again, they were expecting that everything will become fine within a year or 2 years. But uh, this part of Pakistan is underdeveloped since 75 years. So
Mm.
at least we should give a quarter of that time, or 10 or 15 years, to bring the low hanging fruits of this project.
Mm.
So so it's all about the developmental issues, and absence of some basic health facilities, some energy issues. The fishermen community, for example, one of their main demands, is the presence of trawlers in the sea. So much of their chunk of fishing which they used to catch earlier very easily. So now they say that their revenue has been disturbed. So yeah, so they have all of their issues are their issues with the state of Pakistan. It has nothing to do with uh, Chinese friends, and they because they all regard them as their friends and their partners in development, actually. So unfortunately, these issues are there, and but let's hope that things will become better.
Well, Dr. Kahoot, since you mentioned regarding the business of fishery, I want to read something to you according to article, and it says, and I quote, a Chinese diplomat had mentioned that China's plan to expand into Pakistan's fishing industry, and the person says that you, which refers to Pakistan, have rich resources when it comes to fishery, and of course that regarding that the Pakistan seafood exports to China reached 141.57 billion dollars, and which means a 34% increase from the previous years, and we're looking at the year of 2022. Now, again, as you mentioned before, China is very much interested in strengthening the economic relationship with the Pakistan, again, especially the local business owners. But right now, the reaction from the fishery industry and also the reaction from the local fishermen didn't really appreciate the presence of the Chinese investment, or should I say, the Chinese opportunities. Now, help us to understand, how should we understand this resentment from the local fishermen to the Chinese diplomat or even to the Chinese companies? Is this, again, the question is, are we looking at a superpower trying to swallow this small fish in order to make or to generate a bigger noises? What do you think of, Dr. Kahoot?
Yeah. You see, these fishermen and their issues, they didn't start by the arrival of Chinese businessmen. As I said earlier, their grievances and their issues are, they date back, before the Chinese arrival in the region, or in the country, or in the Gwadar. So, of course, due to so many stakeholders, because the other port, Karachi port, is far away from Gwadar port, so it is in another province, it is in another jurisdiction. of the province, of the other province. So their fishermen also have such issues. So now Chinese are not present in those waters. You know. So I mean, it's a issue which dates far back than the Chinese presence. And as I said earlier, these fishermen were expecting that as now China is there, it's a big country, so their income will the income of these Chinese, as you said earlier, the numbers, the great grand numbers of the Pakistan fish exports to China, as those numbers are increasing. But unfortunately, the size of the cake for these fishermen is not increasing. You know, their share is not increasing. There are a lot of there is a lot of bureaucratic red tape or bureaucratic, middle men involved between the Chinese buyers and these fishermen who are the primary sellers of these products. You know, which is a fish eventually. So these are their grievances, and and these grievances are so time and time, they keep on raising their voices, and they keep on protesting, So, for example, Pasni, Jivani, Omara, these are the three key areas where in the waters in Balochistan province, the major chunk of the community is the fisherman community. Their primary livelihood is the fishing. So everything or anything which will affect fishing in the region, it will have a direct impact on their incomes. So yeah. So unfortunately, by this Gwadar Port development, their incomes have been affected because of because of the illegal fishing by these trawlers. So again, who award such contracts to these trawlers? It's the government. It is the local governments. So actually, all these protesters, they are protesting against their government. So eventually, in the areas where they are doing the protest, eventually in the close vicinity, the Chinese friends are also there. The Chinese engineers are also there. The Chinese workers are also there. So naturally, anyone who will write an article about it, or this, so they will. So naturally, they can't keep the Chinese factor, as I said, out of picture. So it's naturally, yeah.
Dr. Kahut, again, I want to go back to the Belt and Road Initiative. Again, before we have this conversation, and I did thorough research and regarding this ongoing protest and also this disgruntled attitude, not only from the local fishermen, of course, that we're looking at this Pakistan and China relationship under Belt and Road Initiative. Now, again, I want to go back to an article. I'll read something to you. It says, and I quote, "The presence of the Chinese workers and the business people from China may destroy their identity," which means the identity of the Pakistan, by causing demographic change. Now, again, Dr. Kahut, you work closely with the government. Of course, that you also studied extensively regarding the Belt and Road Initiative and also energy economics. Now, the simple question next I want to give it to you is, how much do you think the presence of China actually impact the identity and the culture of Pakistan today? Because again, we know there are more than 149 countries included, joined this Belt and Road Initiative. Some countries are very worried that we're looking at the year of 2023 or so forth, that the promise of under this Belt and Road Initiative. But meanwhile, no country would like to be changed or modified culturally and also economically by China. So from your perspective, how much do you think the presence of China today actually created impact, or maybe could impact the identity, or culturally speaking or economically speaking, for Pakistan? What is your take on that?
Yeah. So you see, the Chinese people or the Chinese workers, it is in their DNA that wherever they go for their investments or this sort of work, they always respect the local culture and tradition. So we have seen it. It is an open fact. Nobody can deny it. So similarly, a lot of Chinese now, they are working in Pakistan, and I haven't seen any case where there is where it is reported that they have
Mm.
violated the local customs and traditions and rituals, or because Pakistan is primarily a religious society. People give a lot of importance to the religion in Pakistan. So the official name of Pakistan is Islamic Republic of Pakistan. So from here you can guess, that how important the religion is, or the religious ethos are for the people. So, but a common man always regard China as a friendly country. If you ask a common Pakistani industry, they'll ask you ask about China, they say China is our friend.
Mm.
So these are the common aspirations, or the common viewpoint. So back to your question, that how in future they'll be impacting the identity or culture. So I think it's China is not making Pakistan or any other Belt and Road country as their colony. They are not colonizing those areas.
Mm.
So it is a win-win cooperation, as the President Xi Jinping, he have repeated it so many times, that actually through Belt and Road Initiative, they are going to make a community of shared future. So it is a win-win situation. As we have seen a lot of infrastructure development projects in Africa, in South Asia, Sri Lanka, Pakistan. So it's always about that factor. So of course, one of the factor, or one of the aspect of the Belt and Road Initiative is also the people-to-people cooperation.
Mm.
I'm the example of it. I belong to a village in Pakistan, and now I'm sitting in one of the very industrialized city of China, that is Jinan. So and I'm doing my PhD here. So when I will go back, so of course I'll take some key lessons which I learned from Chinese society, and those key lessons will be impacting my family learning,
Mm.
and those sort of stuff. So yeah, and just like me, there are more than 25,000 Pakistani students, who are studying here, or in different disciplines, or also who are working here. So all of these, it will contribute a lot. And similarly, there are so many Chinese who are working in Pakistan. So when they will come back, they will bring so many Pakistani traditions, and
Mm.
Pakistani local folk tales and stuff like that. So of course, in this way, you can see, yeah, it will of course further diversify the local culture and that sort of stuff. But again, any big superpower or the emerging superpower, it can only impact, or it can only alter the culture of any other country only if it colonize that country. This is not true in case of China, because China is not colonizing any country, or it hasn't colonized any country yet in its more than 70 or 73 years old or history. So yeah.
Mm. Dr. Kahut, I really appreciate, and of course I enjoy listening that what you were saying, that China has never intended to colonize any countries. Now, let's bring back to the reality. Now, again, you're in China. I mean, again, you went through this ups and downs and throughout the pandemic, but right now, even though we're in the year of 2023, people, I don't just mean the nationals in China, but we mean outside China, people are very concerned about this economic outlook for China. Again, you're an economist, and you study and you research for Belt and Road Initiative. Now, Dr. Kahut, next question I want to ask is, what do you make of this current Chinese economic situation? Because we know that this COVID situation has been changed back and forth. And we are living in China, and we're witnessing the transitions on the daily basis. People are looking forward to bigger or much greater opportunities to invest in China. But right now, nothing has been showing quite stable, or should I say quite promising, for this economic outlook. So from your perspective, country like Pakistan, country, again, like Turkey, any other neighboring countries, how should they project the progress in terms of the economic partnership between China and their home countries? What do you say to that?
You said China is the first country which rebounded very fastly once the COVID hits, actually. So when the other countries were suffering at that time, initially, China was fighting hard with the COVID.
Hmm.
And, keeping in view the size and the size of population, size, that how massive that China is. So I think that China has, performed very brilliant in containing the COVID virus, and the COVID zero policy of President or the CPC, it actually uh, played its very massive role in containing this virus or the mitigating the loss, you know. So, and on the second part of your question, that which is about the economy. So due to this COVID and the lockdowns, so there was a commodity super cycle which hit the global economy. So it's not
Hmm.
only about Chinese economy. So we have seen that the global economic growth rate has gone down. We have seen it, again and again over this period of time, over the course of 3 years time period. So similarly goes true for the China, because it is one of the very slowing growing economy recently, in these COVID years. But keeping its size and the volume of its economy, still the performance of Chinese economy is not bad. Your third part of question, which talks about the global investment interest
Hmm.
of the investors in China. Yeah, that is the value. That's where I'll go with those people which say that many investors are looking very negative about the economic prospects in China. So I think
Hmm.
that it will be true for the next 3 or 4 quarters or 2 years. You can say that, because once the economy is in lower cycle, it takes time to get up. But the main part of Chinese economy is the manufacturing sector, because China is the factory of the world. It virtually produces or manufactures everything which the world consumes. So it is the symbiotic relationship between the global economies and China. So the global low economic growth, it also means that it is the economic rate in China, or the growth rate in China, will also be a bit sluggish.
Hmm.
But every economy, or the cyclical nature of economies, actually, it tells us that once an economy is in the lowest ebb of the cycle, it is bound to go up. So I hope that sooner or later, Chinese economy will pick up. Of course, now things are not as good as they used to be, but the prospects are very good, because only yesterday, as we are recording this episode on 8th of January, China has resumed the normal, flight operations, and there is no
Hmm.
quarantine. There are no quarantine restriction as such now. So the China has finally opened, and let's hope that this opening of China, like opening up as it happened in 1978 by the Premier Deng Xiaoping. So again, now this opening up in terms of COVID restriction, so it will also bring some great fruits for Chinese economy and the world.
Well, Dr. Kahoot, I want to wrap up our conversation by going back to one simple question. As we mentioned before, in 2 weeks that we are going to celebrate the Chinese New Year, and you are one of the thousands of non-Chinese residents living in China. And again, as we mentioned before, you experienced the ups and downs during the pandemic. You witnessed the economic drawbacks and also the economic prosperity of China. And also, you studied and researched for political changes in China as well. Now, everyone is asking the same question. Now, let me be the person who asks you the question directly. What made you feel so positive and promising regarding the future of China? Even though we can hear a lot of noises outside the box, even though we can hear a lot of political backlash and political finger pointing from the other side of the aisles, but again, I truly admire someone like you that who show this persistence and this resilient attitude in China, again, maintain positive, maintain helpful, again, regarding this a diplomatic or international relationship? Again, going back to the question, Dr. Kahut, what made you so positive and also so encouraging about China? Help us to understand.
Yeah, Mr. Will, first of all, I must say the type or the work attitude of Chinese people, actually, this is the biggest factor, or this is the biggest reason that why I'm so hopeful. Because, the national poet of Pakistan, he said that the nation lives in the heart of people. Nation as such is nothing. It is just a word, nation. But actually, it is the people or a person who builds up any nation. You know, so the resilient nature of Chinese people, their hardworking attitude, and their thousands of years old, their history of struggle. It is something. When I combine it with the old Chinese wisdom, so I'm 100% hopeful that things will improve. Things are let me say that things are bound to improve in this part of the world, because again and again, don't forget the times of the opium wars, this century of hopelessness and such type. But this nation has emerged as the global emerging superpower. This nation has emerged as the factory of the world. So if that can happen, of course, in just as the start of the 2023, we can say that the 2050 China will be far better than the 2020 China. Yeah.
Well, Dr. Kahut, I always say the reason why I enjoy interviewing people like you, and I enjoy thoroughly the conversation with scholar like you, because always that I can hear those uplifting and encouraging messages from you and help me and also help our viewers to understand in this world today that isolation is not the option. Finger pointing is not the solution. And the best way is we're looking at the word is called global unification. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great honor to speak to Dr. Shoaib Kahut. Again, Dr. Kahut is a PhD scholar of the Shandong University in China. And of course, that he belongs to Pakistan, wherein he worked for the government and private sectors as well. And he researched extensively under Belt and Road Initiative and also energy economics. Now, Dr. Kahut, again, I know, as we mentioned before, we're only a few weeks away from Chinese New Year. And again, I want to wish you a happy New Year, and we'd love to have you back on the show as we continue to follow the economic and also the political changes between China and Pakistan. Brother, thank you so much for doing this.